All right, my mic is unmuted now. I am going to try something new. So, good afternoon, all of you. I'm super excited to be doing this for the first time. I'm going to be doing lives on a weekly basis, live teaching calls, because I want to start introducing my audience to what it is that I do, what it is that I'm about, and how I can ultimately add value to your lives and help you move towards the purpose that God has for you. And one of the ways that I can do that is by offering these things so that you can all see what it is that I do specifically. So first of all, most of you know who I am. My name is Dave Guresso, but maybe not all of you know exactly what it is I'm trying to do with this community. And I am broadcasting this to a few different platforms right now. So I know that some may see this and may not know exactly who I am even as well. So Dave Guresso, my formal introduction is I am a Christian-based, heart-centered coach that's ultimately helping people discover their purpose and create a plan to fulfill it and start walking in it. And so I'm really excited about helping you know what it is that you're specifically supposed to be doing in your life, what God's called you to do, and then helping you figure out how to. I know this is a difficult thing for a lot of people, and the reason I'm passionate about it is because I'm that guy, right? I've had that struggle. I've spent, at least a decade and a half sitting in the desk at work going, I know there's more for me. I know God has a plan for me. I've had friends and family members telling me all throughout my life, you're meant for this, you're meant for that. You're so good in these areas. Why don't you do something? And I'm here. I finally had the opportunity to do it. And so I'm excited to share that gift with all of you and to share all that God's done for me and all this knowledge that he's put in my head so that I can be a blessing to others and encourage them towards moving in the direction that they want to move as well. So if you want to know more, you can visit my website. I have it scrolling there along the bottom, davideguresso.com. You can private message me on Facebook and LinkedIn. Those are the primary platforms that I usually work out of right now with plans to expand that in the future. So please jump into those groups or those platforms. Send me a friend request, connection request, and we can talk more from there. And I also have a private Facebook group called Transform You. I'll put the link on the bottom for that as well. It's called the Transform You community. I'm trying to build up a community there where we can support one another towards these goals, because while I may be the person speaking right now, I am not the only one that believes in the things that I'm talking about. There are many others out there that want to see a positive move in people's lives and see lives be transformed. And I know that there is a building community there to Transform You that wants to help you do that. So want to also encourage anyone watching this, if you have any comments, questions, or anything that you want to put out there, I should be able to see them on my screen. Again, this is a new platform, a new thing that I'm trying here where I'm streaming on multiple platforms. So forgive me as I mess up and getting used to it and how it works. So today, to just introduce you to the first topic, I want to talk about knowing our identity and our value as people. I think so many of us get this wrong. And again, I'm coming at this from a heavy Christian perspective. So I understand if that's not your thing, you're welcome to stick around and listen or jump in with comments. There's nothing you're going to say to offend me, upset me. This is a safe space, and I really just want to help people become who God intended them to be. I'm coming at this from a perspective of love and generosity. I want to really just invest in your life. So that's who I am, what I'm here to do. But let's get into the topic. So just to broach the subject of identity, I think a lot of times where we get identity confused is we see identity as a role, right? And what do I mean by a role? A job, right? Guys, this is our tendency. If you walk into a crowded room and you're meeting people for the first time, guys have a tendency to ask this one question most often: what is it that you do? Right? Because many men tend to associate their identity with their job. And that can be anything from a CEO or some type of an individual contributor, or anything in between. It could be an entrepreneur. All right. That's a role that you have. Your another role, ladies may identify with this as being a parent, a stay-at-home mom. Right. It's another role that we fulfill in life. It could be being a son or a daughter, an influencer, somebody who manages many assets. It could be somebody who's really well known for something. All of these things are simply roles that we fulfill, and most of us fulfill multiple roles in our life. But then if you pay attention to circumstances, right? And here are a couple examples of circumstances: a person with a lot of wealth or privilege, a person without a job, even a person who wishes they were a parent, a person who lost their mom or dad, a nobody, a poor person, an inferior or a superior person. All these things are circumstances or viewpoints that we may have about something that we believe about ourselves to fulfill, or maybe we believe that's how people see us. It could be a person who lacks or has lots of resources or opportunities in life. All of these are roles and circumstances, but these things are not our identity. They're not our identity. And I think where we get into what I call an identity crisis is we confuse roles and circumstances with who God says that we are. And so to try to illustrate further with this issue of identity, I want to talk about a book, right? Writing a book. It's something I'm doing. You can also, for the artistic types, think about creating a painting or something like that. When we create things, right? Because we are made in the image of God, we're creators like he's our creator. But when we write a book, like, I want you to think about the characteristics of a book, right? Books have certain colors. They have a certain type of organization. The books come in all different sizes. You can modify the cover page, the fonts, like all different books that are written there. There's all these different characteristics, right, that you find. Also, the content of the message varies from book to book. The book is written from a unique perspective, depending on who writes it. The moral of the story, or the main points in the story, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, doesn't matter, right? That all varies from book to book. But here are some absolutes about every book, no matter what's written. And this is where it gets interesting. It actually gets more interesting, but let's start here. So the absolutes about any book: the value of the book is assigned by the author, right? The price is determined by the author when he publishes it. The content of the message of the book is written by the author. The purpose of the book is determined by the author. You're probably starting to hear a trend now. The book is written from the author's unique perspective, and the characteristics of the book are designed or chosen also by the author. It's very interesting, right? That all of these characteristics, all these varying things about each book, regardless, the author gets to decide how that book is going to look, the message it's going to deliver, and the purpose for which it exists. Now, think about human beings, right? Human beings are very similar. We each have different physical features, different skin colors, different hair types and hairstyles, different eye colors, different body shapes and sizes, just like books. We all have different gifts, talents, and abilities. We have different unique experiences that we go through in life. We also have different challenges that we face, and we have different beliefs. But here's something, this is where it actually starts to get interesting. These are the absolutes about every human being, no matter what, despite the different physical features, gifts, talents, abilities, challenges, unique experiences, beliefs, despite all that. Here are the absolutes. Just like the book, I want you to remember the absolutes that I taught you about writing a book. The absolutes about a person, the value of the person is assigned by the author, the creator. The content and message of the person's story are written by the creator or the author. The purpose for the person is also determined by the author. The person is created from the author's unique perspective, and the characteristics of the person are designed by the author or the creator of the person. Do you see the correlation? Just like every book has different characteristics, so does every human being. But one thing remains constant in both situations. The author, the creator of the book, or the human being is ultimately the one who gets to decide the value, the purpose, the characteristics, all these things that we're talking about. Your purpose was given to you by your creator. So now, why do we struggle with identity? Why do we struggle with identity and our value? So let's go back to the book analogy, right? With books, the message of different books doesn't always align. Some books say things that completely oppose what other books say, right? That's a common thing. We know that about books. Everybody accepts that fact, and it's okay. It's great to have the freedom to share different perspectives, isn't it? A book, but here's the thing about a book, right? A book can't tell the author what it's worth. The author assigns the value to the book. A book doesn't write itself, so it can't determine its purpose. A book doesn't even exist until the author writes it. And books have varying characteristics, right? So why do we struggle with identity? Why do we struggle with value? Because a lot of times, right, things don't align. Let's look at it from a human being perspective. In the same way, the message of different people doesn't always align. A person can't tell the author what he or she is worth. So what do we have a tendency to do? We try to assign that value to ourselves or to others. The person doesn't create themselves, so he or she can't determine their own purpose. A person also doesn't exist until we're created by our creator or author. And we also have different characteristics. So what happens when we begin to attach our identity to characteristics, our experiences, our perspectives, we start comparing, right? And we start getting into the wrong view of identity, the wrong way to see our value, right? And so here are some issues that come with that. And I'm borrowing this from a very good friend of mine. 4 primary issues that really can get in the way of anything. And those things are fear, ignorance, comparison, and entitlement, right? These are all the different ways in which we can really get a wrong view of our identity and start damaging and hurting other people and leading them away from their purpose instead of guiding them towards an encouraging, safe environment where we're building them up, because that's the vision, right? For this organization and this community that we're building, it's to build each other up. It's for unity, right? We want to bring unity and build people up to know who they are and the tremendous value that God's given them. But with fear, we're often afraid because we're different, right? Or because we don't know what the next thing is or what we're supposed to be doing. And the biggest one yet is probably because we're not in control, and we know that. And some of us are afraid of what could happen simply because we're not in control. And life has a way of showing us that, doesn't it? When it comes to ignorance, right? We don't know everything, right? And we're not talking about the ignorance of not knowing everything. We're talking about the willful ignorance. The idea where sometimes I know the right thing to do, but I don't do it. Or sometimes I know not to do something, but I choose to do it anyway, right? That's willful ignorance. Comparison, right? When I don't understand my identity or my value, I begin looking around at others and comparing myself to them. And that can get you, that comparison is a trap as well, right? Because a lot of times we don't like being different. We often fail to enjoy the journey. We're so focused on a destination in life that we don't realize that the journey we're on getting there is actually preparing us for what's ahead. Tell me that you, if you're watching this, haven't experienced a time in your life where you got to a certain point and you looked back, right? Soren Kierkegaard has a quote that life is better understood backwards. Tell me you listening to this haven't had a time in your life where you've arrived and looked back and said, wow, if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now. We're being prepared in our struggles and our challenges and our pain. And I really believe that it's our pain and our struggle that most prepares us for what's ahead, because you always come out stronger in the end. So we want to remember that when we are doing the comparison thing, everybody's in a different place in their journey. Everybody has wisdom to share from their journey. And rather than competing and comparing, we really could be looking at each other and say, what can I learn from you? And what can you learn from me so that we can become better in the process, rather than trying to see who's further ahead. Even in our language, we speak it, right? We say to ourselves, they're ahead of me, or I'm ahead of them. But really, no one's really ahead of anyone. We're just all in a different place, right? And the whole purpose here is for us to work together and build each other up. So the last one is entitlement, right? We do insist on getting our way sometimes, don't we? That can get you into a identity crisis too, right? Because we want what we have, and some of us want what we want, and some of us feel like we really deserve something when maybe God is saying no. And three things: yes, no, or not right now. And we don't want to hear no, and we don't want to hear not right now. We just want a yes right now. But what if you're not ready? What if there's something that God needs to do in your life to prepare you for that journey that you're on, so that when you arrive in the place that you desire to go, you'll be prepared for it? Embrace the challenges, embrace where you are, embrace the struggle. So here's the solution. And this is the thing that God teaches us in his word, right? Our value doesn't change even when we're afraid. This is the beauty of it, right? This is the part that makes me just want to fall in love with God every time I say it. Just because we're afraid and we operate in fear and we make mistakes as a result of that, or we may do something that we feel guilty about, just because of that, our value doesn't change. Because guess who assigns the value and your identity? Your creator. And you don't get to decide that, because you're the creation of the creator. Your value doesn't change even when you don't know, or even when you don't care. I love a song that sings that he's faithful even when we're faithless. That's true. And when we really accept that into our being, it changes everything about our lives and the struggles. The way we see the world changes. Our value doesn't change despite our differences. Yes, we're different, and there's power in our differences, but our value doesn't change just because we're different, just because we have different struggles, just because we have different things that we celebrate and win. Your value remains the same, because again, your value is given to you by your creator. Your value doesn't change whether you get what you want or you don't. Value remains constant. And so the main point here is that your identity and value remains the same, because the author and creator of your life determines that, and you don't get a say in it. Right? I hate to break it to you, but you don't get a say in what your identity and what your value is. Now, you can try by attaching your identity to a role that you have, right? For those of you who may have missed it, a job, right? A role as a parent, a son or a daughter, or some entrepreneurial venture you're doing, whatever it may be. You can attach your identity to that, but that's you making the decision to create your own value, your own identity. But your true identity, your true value doesn't come from your assignment. Your true identity and value comes from what God says about it, because he's the one who made you. He's the author of your life. He's the author of your story. So the moment we begin to accept that, right, I want to put this all together for you. We are living our true identity when we yield to our creator's assigned value for us, regardless of our role or circumstances. Regardless of our role and circumstances. When we begin to accept God's assigned identity and value for us. That's when we begin to live out our true identity. And it's then that we can start moving towards our purpose. And in this, right, there's no room for fear. There's no room for comparison. There's no room for ignorance. And there's no room for entitlement. You just are who he says you are. And you're valuable as he says you are. And it is, let me tell you guys, it's incredible value. It's the kind of value that's going to lead you to an abundant life, not a life of scarcity. And I'm not just talking about finances and monetary gain here. I'm talking about every aspect of your life, abundant in your family, abundant when you go to the grocery store, and simple things like one time I was looking for a pencil and I look back and a lady's fumbling with pencils. Everything you could possibly need in any circumstance, he can provide that. But so often we're so blinded by all the stuff in our head, that fear, that ignorance, comparison, and entitlement, that we don't see what's actually happening around us. On my walk here, right, I'm sitting in a library. On my walk to the library today, I was thinking to myself, gosh, God, I'm confused about what it is that I'm doing. I get lost sometimes. Am I doing what you're actually calling me to do? And it feels like it's not going the way that I think it should be going. I still get that. Like, we're in this together, guys. You're not alone. But as I was walking, it's almost like the Spirit of God was showing me, look up and look around you, Dave. And as I'm walking to my right, there's a construction site. And there's those cap machines and there's materials laying around and the ground's being leveled. And it's as if he was showing me, the reason you can't see what I'm doing yet is because you're still under construction. And so I want to share that with you all, right? Because remember, the author of your life has designed you. The author of your life gets to decide your purpose, your identity, your value, your characteristics, even your circumstances. It's all in his control, and he promised for it to be good. But if he gets to decide all that, then he gets to take your heart and your mind and create that blank canvas and then build it up just like that construction site, the way he wants it to look. So sometimes you can't see what he's doing in your life because right now you're still a construction site. But let me tell you, when the construction is done by this author, it's going to be something far more beautiful than you can ever ask or imagine, because that's his promise. That's what he does for those that he loves, because this is a good author. This author is love personified. And love don't make mistakes, guys. Love don't make mistakes. So our purpose, right, when it comes to purpose, I'm going to finish with this. Our purpose considers all of our unique characteristics, experiences, gifts, talents, abilities, and even our challenges and beliefs, and then uses all of that together to qualify us for a very, very specific need in this world. And let me tell you guys, it's something that there's something you can do, each and every one of you watching this, whether it's now live or later, the recorded message. If you're watching this, I promise you, because I know my God is the same creator of you. If he has given me a purpose, he's given you a purpose. Each and every single one of you has a unique thing that only you can fulfill. Only you. I can't fulfill your purpose. You can't fulfill mine. That's the beauty of this. You are uniquely qualified, and it is all those characteristics, circumstances, the things you've been through, all those challenges, the pain, the struggles, everything you can think of. It was all meant to bring you to where you are today. And if you're willing to look up, like I looked at the construction site today, instead of keeping your head down and staying inside here, look outside of here, guys. A lot of times the thing that where your breakthrough is, a lot of times that's what you're afraid of. The thing you're afraid to do, the thing that everyone keeps telling you to do, said, no, that's not me. You blame it on your personality. You blame it on your circumstances. You blame it on the amount of resources you have, but you don't realize that you already have something, so go use that. It doesn't have to be perfect before you move forward. Everything doesn't have to be right before you move forward, because the one who made you is on your side. And so many of us forget that. I forget that sometimes. But guys, we are never going to get there if we're not willing to move, if we're not willing to get out of here and go out there and make the impact that you were destined to make. And I'm bringing this topic in, guys, because I did a survey in this group, in the group, the Facebook group. And again, if you want to be part of that Facebook group, it's scrolling there, the link to it on the bottom, right? Transform You Community. The survey told me that majority of people who voted, they were struggling with this issue of identity and value. And that's why I'm bringing it. And if you think there's something else that you want to hear about, please comment in the comment section. Tell me what you want to hear more about. Because I'm telling you, God has the answer to it all, guys. He wants to give you that abundant life. He wants you to live out your purpose. And some of us are just so afraid to move, or maybe you're just stuck or you don't know where to go next. But I'm telling you, so he's gifted me to be able to help with that, but ultimately turn to him first. Because my call in my life is to be a light in darkness so that others will be drawn to him. That is the point of what I'm doing. The point of what I'm doing here isn't just to build a business. The point and purpose for which what I'm doing is to draw people to him. I can't escape it. I've tried to do things that don't go into the purpose and calling for which he has for me. And I always get drawn back into it. So now, fearful or not, I have to move forward with it. And I want to lead others to do the same. So a couple other points here before we end. The value of your identity is constant because it's assigned by the author. Hold on to that, guys. The story of your life is written by the author. So everything that's happened in your life, that's a story being written, and that story will always point back to him. But that story is also meant to bless and encourage others in some way. Listen, if you've struggled with addiction, there's other people out there struggling with addiction. And if you've overcome it, you know how to help others overcome it, right? If you're an entrepreneur and you're building a business, then guess what? There's others out there that are trying to build a business and they feel stuck right now. Take what you've learned and share it. If you're a parent and you know what it's like to raise children, it's not easy some days. It's really difficult. And I'm telling you, I have friends and family and people out there that have not raised children. And you can really tell the difference between someone who has and who hasn't. But those who are, they know what I'm talking about. If you've done that, there's other parents out there that are struggling. Go share it. If you've struggled with anything else in your past, abuse, right? There's others out there that are dealing with that. They need to hear from you. Sometimes we make this thing, what's my passion? What's my purpose? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Just consider what you never want to have other people experience in their life again because you've been through that and you're like, it sucks. I don't want people to live through this. Share what you've done to overcome. It's in you. Everything you need is already in you. And so here's the next part of it. Your story, right? We talked about how your story of your life is written by the author. The power and authority found in your purpose comes from your story. This means that you have power. All power is you've got a little bit of resources in you and the things that you've learned, all the parts that make you uniquely you, using that and sharing that with others in a way that encourages, empowers, and builds them up. That's the point of leading. That's the point of being a Christ follower. Go out there and point others to him and show them that they are in fact empowered by him. Encourage them in the truth that he gives. And show them that they have a purpose, that they too can overcome like you and I have. So there is power, and the authority of that comes from what you've been through. Of course you can speak from authority because you've been through it. You've overcome it. God's walked you through it. Your ability to influence others and multiply the impact of that influence comes from the power and authority of that story. So because you have power and because you have authority, you have the ability to influence and impact others as well. And really, what it comes down to, with our struggle with identity and value, it comes down to the fact that we don't always believe this stuff is true. I'm speaking it, and I'm convinced that some people aren't even sure if what I'm saying is accurate. Go read it in the Word of God. It's there, right? He loves us enough to give us our own purpose, our own identity, and he has given us tremendous value. Why would love personified create us if we didn't have tremendous value and a purpose to share that love with others? Because that's what love does. It multiplies and it goes out and it makes the impact to others in love. Right? So here's the last point I make, and then we're done. Your purpose can be lived out in any role, any role. So when I'm at work, I can be a light in darkness that draws others to him. When I'm sitting here on a live like I'm doing right now, I can be a light in darkness that draws others to him. When I'm home with my family, I can be a light in darkness that draws others to him. When I'm out at the grocery store, I can be a light in darkness that draws others to him. You see, purpose isn't a job or a role or a circumstance in life that you're aiming for, right? I want to buy land next. I want to have a homestead, right? But that's not my purpose. That's something that I want circumstantially to happen in my life. And I know that God's a loving God and he cares about the desires of my heart. As a matter of fact, I think he planted it there. Right? But that's still just a role or a circumstance that I desire. It's not my identity. It's not my value. It's not who I am, right? Who I am is a light in darkness that draws others to him. That's my purpose. And it doesn't matter my circumstances, good or bad, whether I like them or I don't like them, whether I agree with them or I don't agree with them, right? Whether I'm in a place I love or a place I hate. This is how Paul, in the Word of God, was able to be content in all circumstances, whether he was in prison or out doing what he loved, sharing the gospel message of Jesus Christ with the Gentiles. It didn't matter. He knew his purpose regardless, right? And the purpose remains. Your identity and your value remain constant because they're given by the author, regardless of your role, regardless of your circumstances. So I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in diving deeper on issues with identity, I do have an online course out there. I have the link there scrolling on the bottom. It's courses.beaconleaders.com. There is a paid online course. You can take it at your own pace. If you're interested in getting deeper into this, I talk about a lot more in that course. And with that course also comes what's called a free DISC session. If you've never taken a DISC assessment, it really deals with like your personality, your temperament, to help you understand how you're wired, because I believe that type of stuff helps us in our relationships. And relationships are everything. A lot of influence, impact, identity, all these things, our purpose for our lives, none of it can come to fruition without positive relationships in our lives. So I'm offering this as a resource as part of that course, no additional cost. And I will walk you through a very extensive report about what that personality type and temperament means for you, and sort of, the blind spots that come with each personality type as well. So if it's something you're interested, go to that link scrolling on the bottom, courses.beaconleaders.com. Again, my name is Dave Guareso. It's been awesome sharing this time with you all today, and I will see you next Thursday at noon for the next teaching. Once again, if you want to hear more, put it in the comment section below what you'd like to hear more about. I'm going to help you guys get to your purpose. I'm going to help you gain the encouragement. I want you to know that you're empowered. You're empowered by God to live out the purpose that he has for you. So I love you all. I hope you have a blessed day, and I will see you next time.